Well, good morning. Good morning. Happy Pentecost. Happy birthday to the church. It's good to see you all. It's good to be back home. It's good to go away for a few days. Doug and I were away the last 7 days, staying in Canterbury, England. We got to stay at the lodge right within the cathedral walls. Very, very cool place. And unlike the weather you all had all week, and unlike the norm in England, it was beautiful and sunny and breezy and 70 degrees each day. We had been to Canterbury before, but only for a few hours. We'd never worshipped there, so the idea of Sunday services and evensong every night was exciting. The history, as you probably know, goes back thousands of years. It is mind-boggling to think about what has gone on there. We got to see behind the scenes and meet the head stonemasons and go up in the tower, and we met Fernando, who was the Spanish stained glass artisan. He needs his own TV show, but that's another sermon. We met the director of music, but I will come back to him in a minute. I knew all week I was preaching today, so I knew there was Pentecost, and I kept looking for ideas. There were so many things. We remember today the gift of the Holy Spirit as we began a new church season. The Holy Spirit doesn't just light on people like it does in that reading from the book of Acts, which is very dramatic and literally fiery. It doesn't always happen that way. It can. It doesn't always just happen once and never return. So we have a whole season of Pentecost, and I believe the Holy Spirit is still alive and well. There were a lot of what some of you these days are calling God winks at me. That's a sweet way to describe it, but I think we need to be more bold and just say, it's really the Holy Spirit. We woke up last Sunday, and we're ready to go to worship. We had a lovely English breakfast with all the finery, and I got dressed up in time for the 11 o'clock service, as one does, with my bow tie, for proper Anglican worship in Canterbury Cathedral. I'm going home, I thought, back to this place from which the Episcopal Church, and hence my entire life, got its start. We heard the bells ringing, and I was pretty eager, my eyes wide open, a kid on Christmas morning, ready to see what was going to be under the tree. The service was held up in the choir, where the seats faced each other, like they do. We walked up to the high steps to be greeted with a smile by a lovely usher. 2 of you, she asked. No, I said. There were 4 of us with Doug's mom and niece. Oh, she said, we have limited seating today. I was crushed. We had come all this way, and I had been waiting all this time. I'm a full-fledged Book of Common Prayer carrying, collar-wearing, via media, cradle-born Anglican and Episcopal priest, and you have limited seating? I want to speak to your boss, I thought. And we were 15 minutes early. I was so mad, because I could see lots of seats. And there were 2 transepts up by the organ, and there was the floor, and I would stand if I had to, but don't tell me, lady, that there is limited seating in my Canterbury Cathedral today. Perhaps ushering is not your gift for ministry. But we stood there and waited, and she looked around, and we got seats right next to the choir. But I was upset. I was crushed. That welcome, or lack thereof, went against everything I know and love about the church. I had given my life to Jesus and to the church because Jesus and the church saved my life. In the Episcopal Church, I found a welcome when others did not fully embrace me. And so I sat in my uncomfortable, hard pew and closed my eyes, and like Dorothy, wished very much I was back home here with you last week. The prelude began, and after checking in on Facebook and posting a picture, I was then reprimanded by another usher for doing so. Finally, I looked up, and I kid you not, at the old building, the gorgeous stained glass windows, and there it was, a round window, not unlike ours. God winked again, and there was another window with a scene from the upper room, a bunch of men with flames on their heads. Ah, I thought, Pentecost, the gift of the Holy Spirit, the advocate, now the Holy Comforter. And the introduction to the first hymn began, and I kid you not, a dove or a pigeon flew right down the center aisle, way up in the vaulted ceiling. Not one of those tacky liturgical kites. It was a real bird, and another one followed it. And later on, they flew over the altar right as they were setting the table for communion. These reminders, these little things, got me through a frustrating moment when I was doubting the whole church and whether or not change and growth will ever really come in our world. Some of you may call those God winks. That's fine. Do whatever you need to. But I think it is more than that. I think the Holy Spirit moves in those ways. Without those ways, we may not be able to keep going. Without those little things, I don't know where I am going, much less how I'm going to get there. Albert Einstein was once traveling from Princeton on a train when the conductor came down the aisle punching tickets. When he came to Einstein, he reached in his pocket and he couldn't find his ticket, and he reached in the other, it was not there. He looked in his briefcase, still couldn't find it. Looked in the seat, couldn't find it. The conductor said, "Dr. Einstein, I know who you are. We all know who you are. I'm sure you bought a ticket. Don't worry about it. Have a seat." The conductor continued down the aisle punching tickets. As he was ready to move to the next car, he turned around and saw the great physicist down on his hands and knees looking under the seat for his ticket. The conductor turned back and said, Dr. Einstein, don't worry. I told you we know who you are. It's all good. You don't need a ticket." Einstein looked at him and said, "Young man, I too know who I am. What I don't know is where I am going." My friends, we have a ticket and we do know where it takes us. Everyone can get one. We need the power and the gifts of the Holy Spirit to show us how to get there. We need to use those gifts to love and serve God. We need to use those gifts to love and serve our neighbors. Dr. Einstein had gifts for physics, but maybe not for keeping up with things. That usher had a lovely smile, but perhaps she is better at flower arranging. Each of you have gifts, and the church in the world needs you to use those gifts and not spend time pretending like you have other ones. Please, for God's sake and for the sake of the world, be who you are, a beloved child of God with the potential to change the world with your love and the love of God. Yesterday, there was a little wedding of a redheaded prince named Carrie and a beautiful actress named Megan that we kind of missed. It was a low-key affair, not at a cathedral, just a simple little chapel. With a few hundred friends and some flowers just picked from the garden. When I heard that the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church was invited to preach, I was very excited, but I have to say I was a little nervous. In fact, I prayed a little bit on his behalf. I had been in a meeting with him 2 weeks before, and if you don't know this, presiding Bishop Michael Curry is the real deal. He was the rector of St. James in Lafayette Square right here in Baltimore. I was nervous because I know he can have some trouble keeping to a time limit. And the Queen likes things to run on time, from what I hear. I also knew that the crowd he was preaching to was not his normal crowd. And I was afraid he would try to stick to a script or cave to the expectation of the stiff British upper lips in order to fit into that crowd. I hope you watched it because all he did was show up as himself. He didn't try to be or do anything that God had not already created him to be or do. He didn't try to fit in. He just preached his message of love and the power of Jesus with some of the same stories and songs I've heard him preach about before. He showed up just as he was, and his message has already changed the world. It was funny watching some of the reactions in the congregation, or lack thereof. News commentators were expecting tradition and fascinators. They were not expecting to be taken to church yesterday. Dave Holmes of Esquire magazine, no less, wrote last night, "Raw displays of emotion such as Bishop Curry's are profoundly un-British. But we as Americans are free to eat them the hell up." And at this point in history, when the world seems to be getting crueler by the minute, an impassioned plea for self-sacrifice, a call for a life centered on love for one's neighbor, is exactly what we need to be hearing. Particularly, he says, when it's delivered in a castle that has survived the Norman conquest and 2 world wars. In the last 1,000 years, Windsor Castle has seen worse than we're living in right now. We will come through this, he said, but we have got to start loving one another. We really did not expect to get inspired by the royal wedding, Dave says, but there you are. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go join the Episcopal Church. So I don't know, I guess I will tell you the story about the music director. David said it didn't get me in trouble at the early service, so I'll keep going. It probably will be another sermon, but this was an incredible musician, the director of music at Canterbury Cathedral. He's been there for 30 years. The musical and choral programs of this place are magnificent, extraordinary, breathtaking, sublime is a good enough word, perfection. But they are pretty white. And that's fine and beautiful. But the Anglican Communion is growing fastest, and the Lutheran Church for that matter, and has most of its people in Africa. So in our private behind-the-scenes time with the choral director, as he was about to show us the fancy little portable organs up right where Thomas Beckett's shrine was, I raised my hand and asked his process for choosing music in light of our church's diversity, how he saw his ministry addressing that in this day and age of ours. And I kind of pointed out that most of the stuff on the program for the week, the settings were all pretty white. It was, shall we say, an uncomfortable moment. His answer was somewhat awkward and less than satisfying. Well, when we need that kind of diversity in worship, we just bring it in. The worst thing he said I can do is pretend I know how to sing that kind of song. Well, if you watched the royal wedding yesterday, you heard an amazing black gospel choir sing Stand By Me and Amen, This Little Light of Mine. And I dare say that little chapel rocked like it has never rocked before. Maybe it was a God week. I want to claim it as the Holy Spirit, alive and well and at work, needing our gifts for ministry. The best scene of the week was yesterday as we came back through Dulles Airport. When you come through customs with your bag, you go through those double doors and everyone is waiting there with balloons and signs, and there were lots of languages going about and people's names on signs. And I thought, oh, this is that moment of Pentecost I've been looking for all week. The one that happened when I came home. The one where there were different voices and different names and languages I had never seen in print yesterday. Happy people ready to welcome back. They knew those by name. We know where we are going, friends, to a place that is a beautiful neighborhood where Jesus holds up a sign with our name on it and welcomes us. There is plenty of good room for all of us. We simply have to go forth from this place with this special charism this community has and be the people that God created us to be and no one else. The church God has called us to be and no one else's church. For God's sake and for the sake of the world, go forth this week and preach the way that only you can preach. Use your gifts and use them for the glory of God, and God's love will then change the world through our work.